Hello and welcome to Microsoft Word for Lawyers, formatting text, paragraphs, and more. My name is Sean Dillman, and this is a presentation that I gave recently to about 100 lawyers across the country, and it went really well, and I received many wonderful testimonials and a lot of great comments following the presentation. So I thought that I would turn this into a YouTube video so that even more people could benefit from seeing it. So before I begin, I'd like to make a few quick comments just to help you get the most out of this presentation. I'm going to be showing you a lot of different screens that are in Microsoft Word so that this is a really practical demonstration and a walkthrough for you. So please ensure that you've clicked wherever you need to click on your screen to make sure that the presentation appears full screen on your monitor. On my side, I've tried to increase the size of my software as much as possible. You'll see that I have a large Word screen. I've got a large cursor and a large mouse arrow, but I can only make it so big. So please make sure that you're in full screen mode on your side so that you can see all of the little details. And with respect to the materials that you'll be seeing in this video, all of these presentation materials are available to you. Just visit my website at seandillman.com and you can request them through there. So that includes all of the presentation slides that you'll be seeing, as well as all of the Word documents that I'll be showing you. There's also a hotkey reference guide. And just to give a little bit more information about the materials, you've got more than 100 slides, so it's pretty in-depth. I wanted to give you really fantastic slides so that you can see all of the stuff that I'll be covering, just in case you find this presentation to be too fast-paced, or if you forget anything, or if somebody comes in and interrupts you or something like that. You'll have all of the slides for reference so that you can look back at them. And of course, I'm not going to be looking at every slide in this presentation. That wouldn't be effective. It would take far too much time. So I am going to be jumping through the slides throughout this presentation. So if you're ever not sure where we are, please just look in the bottom left-hand corner and keep in mind that I'm going to be going between sharing my screen of Microsoft Word, and then I'll be going back to the slides. So I'll be kind of jumping back and forth. So if you ever feel like you're lost, if I'm in a screen share, just wait until I go back into the slides. With respect to the Word documents, as I mentioned, you have access to these documents that I'll be using. You don't have to do anything with them. This is not an interactive presentation. I don't expect you to be formatting your documents and doing work on the documents alongside me. If you want to work on them after, if you want to use them, or if you want to see them, they're there for you. That's why they're there. They're a resource, but you don't need to do anything with them, certainly not during the presentation. Finally, there's a hotkey reference guide. I love hotkeys. I use them all the time. They've kind of become second nature to me. I'll be mentioning them throughout. So I've given you just kind of a partial list. There's more hotkeys than would fit on a single page, that's for sure. But I've given you some of the most common ones that I use and ones that I'll be using in this presentation, because I won't be showing you my actual mouse, like my hand on my mouse. I won't be showing you my keyboard, but I will be showing you where I'm clicking, and then I can tell you the hotkeys that I'm using as I'm using them. And as one final note, please be sure to claim any CPD credit that you may be entitled to for attending this presentation. This presentation has already been pre-approved for credit by the Law Society of British Columbia, the Law Society of Ontario. So based on the strength of that, you can probably get it accredited in your jurisdiction for credit as well. Okay, so with that, here's some information about me, but in a nutshell, I was called to the Bar of British Columbia in 2016. Before entering the world of law, I studied computer engineering technology. I worked as a web developer, and I was a technician at IBM. Throughout my legal career, I've practiced as a barrister and a solicitor, and in 2018, I opened a law firm with a colleague where I continued my practice and was a co-managing partner. I now consult on IT, and I teach lawyers and legal assistants best practices for using technology in legal practice. I regularly speak on technology-related topics to law firms, law schools, bar associations, and CLE providers. All right, this is the last administrative slide. So the target audience of this course is the average lawyer with basic computer skills. I am assuming that you know how to, turn on your computer and open Microsoft Word, send emails, use a web browser, do all kinds of stuff like that. But I'm not assuming anything beyond that. I'm not assuming that you're an expert or that you've been using the software for a certain amount of time or anything like that. So I really do try to walk you through the basics and make this applicable for everybody. And as for the sections, I won't go into the details because that's what we're going to be discussing. But essentially, we're going to look at the versions of Word first. Then we're going to look at things around distance, meaning distance between lines, distance between characters, distance between the edges of the page, things like that. We're going to look at look and navigation, which includes altering how fonts look, altering styles, which is kind of something that controls fonts, and altering headings. So those are all kind of connected concepts, and we're going to look at all of that. We're also going to look at lists, which includes bulleted lists, numbered lists, and multi-level lists. And we're also going to be looking at page settings. So headers, footers, adding page numbers, adding section breaks, and adding links. And within that, I'm actually going to show you a demonstration that shows you how you can use these tools together to produce documents that are much more powerful and will allow you to draft documents much more quickly and with greater accuracy. Okay, so with that, let's get started. So I just wanted to talk to you about the different versions of Word that should be covered by this. And when I say should be covered, Word 2010, 2013, 2016, and Office 365 is the current version of Word. I've been using Microsoft Word, I guess, since 1995, or when I was 10 years old, started using computers, quite a while. And Word has generally been pretty consistent with making sure that something that functions in a previous version will still function in the next version. However, that being said, if you ever find that I tell you something and it doesn't work quite that way in your version of Word, please just let me know and we'll find the correct way. But I am confident that it works, that everything that I'll be discussing works for these versions. So if you're on Word 2013, that's fine. If you're still on 2010, that's fine. It should work. I produced this image for you to see that essentially, even though Word has been changing through the years, it is staying, roughly the same. This first section, I want to talk to you about distance. So by distance, what I've included in there is margins, tabs and indentation, and line and paragraph spacing. So we're going to start with margins, and I'm going to jump to this slide number 8. And in my jurisdiction in Victoria, BC, the court here, when you file an originating document in the court system, like when you're starting a lawsuit, of course, you do not already have a file number because that's something that the court gives it. And the court will generally put one of these stamps on it. They'll either use kind of this huge rectangular stamp or they'll use the small round stamp, and they'll stamp that on the document. So in my jurisdiction, a lot of lawyers and legal assistants like to do this. They actually like to set up custom margins on the first page of their notice of civil claim document, so that there's plenty of room for that stamp. And just to show you, this is what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid a page where the court doesn't have room to put their stamp. This is a picture with 1-inch margins. So this is what we want to avoid. So I'm just going to open up my notice of civil claim document. So this is the document that you have in your materials. And as you can see, there's a big white space here on the top left corner. I'm going to turn on this ribbon because we are going to need to see these little lines at the bottom. So I'm going to turn on ruler. I've turned a lot of this stuff off to make it easier for you to see what I'm doing, but some of it we're going to need. So if you look on a document and if you look at the top, you've seen this before, there's this white area with these numbers. This essentially kind of gives you the information about the page. This is a standard 8.5 by 11 page. So this is, this is at 8.5 width by 11-inch height. And you can change margins by taking your mouse, dragging this around up here. There's these little indentation tab stops and things like this that can be altered, and we're going to be looking at all of this. But what I'm going to suggest that you do if you want to change your margins is that you don't drag and drop things, because in my experience, dragging and dropping is generally a little less precise. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to click on this button that says Layout. Then we're going to click over here on Margins. And it's going to bring up a sub window that's going to start showing us some kind of quick shortcut keys, or not shortcut keys, but shortcuts. This is our last custom setting. This is a normal setting. This is a narrow setting, moderate, wide, mirrored, etc. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and this is going to be a theme throughout this presentation. I'm going to click on this little this text that says custom margins. By clicking custom margins, it's going to bring us into a separate, like a new window is going to come up. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to be showing you lots of these little new windows, like these small windows that I bring up, as opposed to just working out here, as opposed to just working using the ribbon. I often come into these smaller windows because these windows give you more control. So in this case, in this document, as you can see here, 2-inch, 2-inch, so that's top, left, and then bottom and right is 1-inch, 1-inch. Ignore gutter. Gutter relates to adding space if we're going to be binding this document. We are not going to be doing that. So that's kind of more of maybe a publishing thing or something. So you can ignore that if you've ever wondered what that is. But on this document, we can change the margin. So if we want to set this back to a standard margin, top and left, I just changed it to 1 and 1. And there you go. Now we're back to a custom margin, or sorry, a standard margin of 1-inch margins. But I'm going to go here, click margins, custom margins, top 2, left 2. I'm going to click OK, and that is back to there. You'll see that the second page is standard 1-inch margins. You know, we don't want this 2-inch left and 2-inch top margin to be on the whole document. I'm going to show you later on in this presentation how you can use section breaks to make a change that will affect one page but not other pages. So just hold on for that. The next thing I want to talk to you about is indentation. So this text over here has been indented over to the right, and I'm going to show you why we've done that. Again, in my jurisdiction, as I mentioned, when you file a document with the court, they're going to actually stamp a real-life stamp, assuming that you do it in person, or if you do it electronically, they're going to put a stamp in the top right corner here where it says numbers, so that they can give your newly born lawsuit a file number, or your probate application a file number, or whatever you're filing with the court, they're going to give it a file number. I like this style, which is to have this text in the top right corner, but I also want it to be justified to the left, meaning I want it to be in a line. Like, I don't want it to be, look like this. Just one second. I don't want it to look, like this or something ugly, right? I want this. I want the number and the city, the name of the city, Victoria Registry or whatever. I want this to line up perfectly. And the way that I'm causing it to line up is I set a new indentation, or a new indent, and that is up here. So again, as I mentioned, I'm just going to go just Control Z to undo that. As I mentioned, you can come up here and you can click and you can hold these things to drag this around. Like I could drag it to 3, and I'm confident that that's a 3 or 2 or whatever. And you can do that, and that's fine. But again, what I like to do is hold Shift. I'm going to highlight this text, and then I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to go to Paragraph. And again, in this window, you see here where it says Indentation. It tells us that we have a 4.5-inch indentation. And that indentation is off of this margin, which is our 2-inch margin. So if you do the math, if we're at a 2-inch margin, and if this is indented over 4.5 inches, it's 6.5 inches across the page. Obviously, the numbers are not terribly important, but just to give you an idea of the specifics of what we're looking at. So the reason I'm showing you that it's important to use indentation is if you didn't do this, like let's say you wanted to put text over here, number, city registry, let's do it like this, and you wanted it to be over here. Well, you can't very well, I'm just holding the space bar, you can't just like space it over, like you could, right? Of course you could do this and it would work, right? But this is not, it roughly worked, right? It roughly worked, but it's not very nice. And actually, I want to go to this slide, this thing. So if you look at this little button, I'm not sure if you've seen it before. This is slide 17. There's a little button in Word that will show and hide formatting. A lot of people I have met don't like this button because they find it to be annoying when it turns on. I've also included the shortcut key, Shift-Control-8, turns it on and turns it off. People find it to be annoying because it kind of makes your document look ugly, but I'm going to bring the document back over and show you that Control-Shift-8, Control-Shift-8. I'm turning it on and off, on and off. Your screen is not malfunctioning. I'm doing this on purpose. On, off, on, off, on, off. So the reason I'm doing that is because it shows us all of these little hidden characters that you wouldn't normally see. And the reason that I want to turn this on, I can also click it, is we want to see these little hidden characters so that we understand what's going on in the page. So these little dots that you're seeing here, these are spaces. And that's why when I turn this off, you can't see them because they're spaces, right? They're invisible. So when we're formatting, it's very important to have this on so that we can see what's going on with the page. This little unit here is actually a really interesting little, I guess, paragraph in and of itself, because what you have here is you have this little icon. I'm going to try to zoom up on it quite large. You have this little icon, which is kind of this arrow down and to the left, and then you also have this icon, which is that reverse P thing. So this symbol, I guess, means it's a soft return, which means that you can add a new line. Like, let's say I wanted to add it. So let's say that this is para 1, and then we want to add a new line, and then this is line 2, and then we add a new line. I'm holding shift and I'm pressing enter. That's the hotkey, by the way. Line 3. And then I come down here, and then I want to make a new paragraph. I press enter instead of shift enter, and then I say paragraph 2. Line 1, line 1, line 2. The reason I'm doing that is because if I highlight this text, all of this, I right click on it, I go back to paragraph. This is where we can start controlling things like the spacing before the paragraph, the spacing after the paragraph, the spacing between the lines. So if I want this to be double spaced between these lines, I can turn it on here. And if you look here in this little preview window, and I apologize, I understand this preview window is very small. It's small on my screen, so on your screen it's probably looking, even smaller. This little preview window shows us what it's going to look like before we click OK and before we make that change live. But let's say I wanted to, do something, I wanted 12-point fonts, before and after, and I wanted these double spaced. I click OK, and then it does it to that, but it does it just to that paragraph, you see. It doesn't do it to this paragraph. So if I come down here to some body text, it actually makes a little bit more sense as well, which is to say, so this whole section, this first section about the parties, right? I will come from here to here. I held shift and I highlighted the text and I pressed enter. Because these are all independent paragraphs, I can highlight them all, right click, go to paragraph, and I can make changes that will affect each of these paragraphs independently. For example, the spacing that I have here, I have 12-point spacing after each paragraph, which gives it this nice look that spaces it out a bit. But let's say we also wanted to add a little bit of line spacing between the lines themselves just to make it easier to read. We could add a custom line spacing like 1.25. I'm going to press enter. And now it has increased the space between all of these lines by 1.25. Maybe that's not so visually appealing. I'm going to hold Control and press Z and go back to the standard formatting. But I'm showing you this as an example so that you understand what you can do by highlighting text and making sure that it's its own paragraph, and then using this window, this paragraph window, so that you have more control over these really fine features. I actually have a slide on this. I'll jump to. I am at slide number. Pardon me. Slide number 55. I'm jumping ahead. I'll be coming back. But slide 55 shows us really how these specific fields are affecting specific parts of the document. So, okay. So I'm going to bring the document back in, and I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to press Z or Z to undo all of the changes that I just made so that I can put this document back to its original form. So the reason I want to do that is I want to talk for a moment about these four little icons, left justify, center, left align, center, right align, and justify. And I want to take this text, which is in the Supreme Court of Jurisdiction. I'm going to put it over here. And I tabbed this over twice. So again, because we have this button turned on, we can see the hidden marks in the document. This little arrow to the right is a tabs, which is that tab key on your keyboard above caps lock. So if you press tab, 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 it tabs. It jumps basically a set distance. Those set distances are standard. They're basically 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch. You can see at the top here that it's lining this text up with a 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2-inch, etc. And that tab happens off of your margin. In this case, it's a 2-inch margin. But what I want to show you here really quickly is that this tabbed over text kind of looks like this text as far as where it appears on the screen, but it's very different. Meaning we got this text here by tabbing it over, which is not really what we want to do. So I'm gonna just push this text down for a moment. What we do instead is we take this text, we highlight it, and we use this features, which is center, Control E, which I think it means equal. Because what Control E does, I'm going to press this button, Control L. So Control E, Control L, Control E, Control L. Control L is standard left justification or left align, which is normal when you open any document. And with a left align, it's sitting right on the margin. But because we're drafting this notice of civil claim to start this lawsuit and it has a specific style, we want to center this text. So instead, we're going to go Control E. This text is also left aligned. It's left aligned to this margin, or this indent, I should say. We can right justify. I held Control, I pressed R. We can justify the text. I'm going to hold Control, press J. Now, justifying a single line doesn't look very good because there's no comparison. You need multiple lines of text. So I'm going to come down here to this body text. I'm going to turn off the paragraph. I'm going to turn off our view, and I'm going to toggle between Control L, which is left justified, and you can see that change happening here as well. I'm going to go between this one and this one, this one and this one. So justified, left, justified, left. So I've got a diagram to show you this as well. Pardon me, slide number 36. So I'm showing you on this slide that left align and justify look very similar if you look at this part of the text. But once you start looking at this part of the text, you see that it's very different, because justify basically evens out the spacing between all of the words and the units there, to produce a nice effect where it's nice and flush on the left margin and the right margin. So for legal drafting to really have a polished document at the end of the day, whether it's a letter to opposing counsel or articles of incorporation or court documents, whatever, justifying the text is definitely the best way to go. So okay, so I'm going to jump back into the documents. I just want to come up back to the top and go and show you where I was tabbing this text. So I want to show you that you can use custom tab stops. So if I right click on this again and I go to paragraph, where is that? And then you come down here to tabs. You can actually set custom tab positions up here. So as I said, the default tab stops are at 0.5 inches, and you can actually change that, but we're not going to do that. So the standard default tab stops are at 0.5 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, etc. But let's say we wanted text to be 1.75 inches. So if we come here, I've got my cursor right here. This is at 1.75. And again, as I mentioned, the reason that I don't, and that's actually this tab stop here, the reason that I don't do this manually is if I'm dragging this around up here, you can't really tell, is that 1.75 or is that 1.8 or what is that, right? So I don't like to do that. I like to go into the menu and do that. And if I come down here and look at something like this, which is a list, you'll see where setting a custom tab stop can actually come in handy. So I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to click on Adjust List Indents. It's a little different setting because this is for a list. I didn't go into paragraph and then tabs. I just went into Adjust List Indent. So it says Text Indent 0.75. I'm going to change this to a 1 inch indent and click Enter. And there you go. So what you see happen is this pushed this text off of these A and B further over on the page. And in my view, by giving this text a little bit more room to breathe, as opposed to if you look down here, if you look over here, this is much better looking in my view than this, because it's got room to breathe and then we're tabbed over. So that is the explanation of kind of how you can set custom tab stops, why you would want to set custom tab stops. So I want to show you this document. So this is something that I kind of talk about how you can space paragraphs apart. And I talk about the difference between using line spacing and return spacing. So if you look on the left-hand corner, the left-hand document, you see all of these little P icons, which means paragraph returns. And if you look over here, you don't see any at all. So I'm going to show you that back in this notice of civil claim. So if we come down here, and I'm going to turn the formatting on again so we can see it, you'll see here that we've got these different paragraphs under this section party. So what if I wanted these sections to be spaced out more? Well, as I showed you, we can highlight all of the text in this section. We can right click, we can go to paragraph, and then we can increase the distance. So if we wanted more spacing after each paragraph, we could say 18 points, 24 points, 30 points, whatever. You know, I'll make it 30 points just to show you something kind of, you know, easy to see. So with 30 points, we've got a huge space after the paragraph, but you see that we still just have this little paragraph icon here, and then we have that big space. So alternatively, what if instead of spacing our documents like that, what if we had done something like this? Paragraph returns, or return spacing, pardon me, is kind of the term that I was giving it. So return spacing. So if I do this, if I do return spacing, like if I use returns to produce my space between these paragraphs, we've achieved a similar result, which means we wanted to increase white space between these paragraphs, and we've done it. However, there's a couple problems. The first problem is, as you can tell, it took longer because I had to individually add them. And then the other problem is that if we ever want to change this spacing, we would have to go back and individually remove all of these, paragraphs and these spaces. So I guess my point is that what you really want to do to have nice, clean, tight documents that are easy to work with is you want to use the spacing options that are available. When you click right, you go to paragraph, and it says spacing here, and you can change your line spacing, you can change your paragraph spacing. You want to do it in here. You don't want to just rely on adding spacing using your keyboard or something like that. So look in navigation, we're going to be talking about the things that kind of make up the style of the document. And to do that, I'm going to use the Articles of Incorporation document that I have prepared. So we're going to be essentially looking at a lot of these things that are here. The stuff that you see all the time when you open the document. I'm just going to jump ahead to this area. Stuff that you use all the time, but a lot of it we don't use in legal practice. You know, like if I highlight this text and if I come over here, with legal documents, I'm not going to like make it purple and give it shading and stuff like that. Like that just doesn't happen, right? We're not going to use that. Strike through sometimes we use, bold we use all the time, italics we use all the time, underline we use all the time. You can change the style of the underline by clicking here. I don't find that to be too useful, but if you wanted to do that, you can do that. I want to make a quick note about this. Highlighting, we do that sometimes. A section of a document that is not yet completed or something, we'll often highlight that yellow. As a warning, I want to point out that highlighting text and then making it black highlighting, that does not redact text. There was a story in the news a couple of years ago of I think he was an immigration lawyer. He got in trouble because he thought that he redacted a document in Word by highlighting the text with black, but I'm going to turn the color of the text to white, and you will see that the text is actually under there. It hasn't gone anywhere. You just highlighted it black, right? So anyway, I just want to put that out there as a warning. Going back to what I had mentioned before, I try to avoid using these settings out here, and I generally try to right-click on the document, go to font, and it brings up this sub-window. And this sub-window, again, it gives you all kinds of access to other things that are not in just out here, right? These are kind of special things. You see some of the same stuff: font, style, size, strike through, double strike through. And a cool thing about this window is, when you're making your changes, bold italics, we'll make it really big. we'll change the font. Oh, it didn't like that. Okay, we won't change the font. But anyway, you see in this window down here that it shows you a preview of what the text is going to look like after you make it. And actually on the subject of size, I want to point out a hotkey that I use all the time. If you hold Control and Shift above your Alt key, there's an open bracket and a closed bracket kind of key. I use this all the time to make text, if I need to make it really small or if I need to make it really big or whatever I need to do. I'm just doing this using my keyboard. Of course, you can do that here. You can go like this using your mouse. But as I mentioned, I generally prefer to use hotkeys and I generally prefer to use like sub windows. So I'm just going to hold Control Z and put it back to its size. Another really useful feature is this one, which will change your case. So sentence case, lowercase, uppercase, capitalize each word, and toggle case. So the hotkey for that is, it's Shift F3. I use it so much I don't look at it though. So if you hold Shift and press F3, you'll see that that's lowercase. I press it again. That is, I guess, it made this uppercase and it made that uppercase. It did not make that uppercase because it doesn't know that is. This is just capitalizing the first letter of each sentence, not each word. I hold Shift, I press F3 again, it makes it all caps. So it doesn't cycle through capitalize each word or toggle case, but if you want to capitalize each word, just click on that and it'll do that. So the thing that's great about that is if you've ever received text from somewhere where, like let's say somebody gave you this text down here, or you found it somewhere, but it was all in lowercase, and then you go, oh, well, I don't want it to all be in lowercase. You don't want to have to go through and make that a capital B, capital O, capital D, whatever. You click here, capitalize each word, done. And that's not so nice because, these are kind of more sentences. So I'll click here, sentence case, right? And then it capitalizes, the first letter. Obviously, it's missing British Columbia and stuff like that. But anyway, you get my point. It can be a very useful tool to be able to change your case all at the same time. So now I want to show you something that is very, very helpful. I'm going to come down here about controlling space between characters. This is something that has presumably happened to all of us, which is you've got a document like this, you're humming along, everything's fine, you like it, and then you've got this problem, something very annoying, which is this paragraph here, as you can see, you probably want it to be all on one page, right? It's just kind of dangling over. If I take out this word you, if I delete it, now it fits on one page. Great. But we want the word you to be there. Let's say we've already done our very best to edit this paragraph down to the point where it's saying exactly what we want it to say, and we do not want to remove any words. Okay, so what do you do? And this is a trick that high school students have been doing for a long time to get around page counts in English classes and stuff. So this sentence here, it says, if you have ever had trouble getting a single sentence to fit on a single line, I have a way to help you. So we're going to right-click this text. We're going to go to Font, and then we're going to go to Advanced. And again, this is only available by going in through this sub-window. So you're going to see here where it says Character Spacing, Spacing Normal. If you click on Normal, Expanded and Condensed. You can expand or condense the space between the characters, not the size of the characters, just the space between the characters. So I'm going to leave it on normal, but I'm just going to put my my cursor here in the control window, and I'm going to press my up and down keys. So if you look down here at this preview window, you will see that it is changing the size. So what I'm going to do, so here, I'll show you kind of an extreme example. So if we condense the space by 2 points, this is what it does to the sentence. You can't even read that, right? Because all of the letters are on top of each other. That's a terrible thing. And what if we were to expand the size, we add 2 points between every letter? Well, again, it looks very ugly and spaced out. That's not what we want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down to, I'm going to condense it by 0.4 points. And there you go. It all fit on one side, on one line. So I'm going to use the Control Z and the Control Y keys. I'm going to undo and redo, just so you see it. Undo, redo. Oops, sorry. Undo, redo, undo, redo. And it's a really good trick. Like essentially, if you look at all of this text, this is normal text, 12-point font, I'm guessing. Yes, 12-point font with normal spacing between the characters. This one sentence is the same. It's 12-point font, same font, but the space between the characters has been reduced. And I actually produced this diagram. I got a nice picture of what do you call these? A vice, to show you that, yes, the we have squeezed the text, but you can barely tell. So if we come back to this slide, number 68, by the way, slide 68, here's the first sentence. If you ever have trouble getting a single sentence to fit on a single line, here's the condensed spacing. It looks very similar. And then this final line shows you how much space we saved. We saved this much. It was just enough space that we needed. And actually this slide, number 70, in my jurisdiction, there are court-mandated page limits for, things like applications and different kind of court documents. The Court of Appeal has pretty stringent limits. So, I wouldn't want to get in trouble with a judge who pulls out a ruler and says, "Hey, wait a minute, I found that you changed your spacing in this sentence." But, I really would, I don't think that would happen. I think it would take a heck of a judge to do something like that. Okay. So hotkeys, I've talked about that. Please see the reference guide if you haven't already. I do include I believe every reference hotkey that I mentioned in here, I believe is in there. I'm a big fan of hotkeys. I've got a YouTube channel. I made a whole video about hotkeys that I use in legal practice. So if you're interested, please, it's there. So now we're going to look at styles and headings. Bit of a shift in gears, but still it's within this realm of the look of the document. But headings actually also have a dual role. So headings affect how the document looks, but it also affects how the document functions. So I'm going to hold Control and press F to bring up this navigation window on the left. I'm going to click here where it says headings. And this is probably something you've seen in documents before. I'm going to right click and click collapse all just so you can see them all. So this is a version of articles of incorporation that I've used. The original document has about 40 parts or something. I cut it down to 14 just so I wasn't giving you a document that was too long. It is just a demonstration. So this document is made up of sections and headings, and we're going to talk about sections, and we're talking about headings right now. So if we come down here to part 1, information, you'll see over here actually that when I put my cursor on part 1, interpretation, it caused this to highlight. So this is a heading. I'm going to click up here on styles. Because I have my Microsoft Word so squished to make it big for you, it's not at the top bar, but in your version of Word, you'll probably just see headings up there in the top bar. You probably won't even need to click this button. But anyway, so heading 1 is here. I can right click on that. I can go to modify. I'm not going to walk you through all of this stuff because we've kind of covered it in what we've done already. But my point is, as I kind of promised earlier, we're looking at the submenus that really give you the finer controls. So within heading 1, you can control the font, the size, whether it's bold, italic, underline, all of this stuff. The spacing, this gives you the information about the spacing right here. And then if you click down here on format, well, holy smokes, you've got even more, right? You can do the fine tuning of the fonts, the paragraphs, the tabs, the borders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It would take far too long for me to get into all of that, so I'm not going to. But the point is to show you that you can style the heading to look however you want it to look. In this case, this is an Articles of Incorporation. We merely want part 1, part 2, part 3 to look different and be centered so that it sets off what comes after it. So what comes after it? Something like this, definitions. So if I click over here to make this bigger, definitions, construction of words, singular and plural words, etc. So these subheadings, I'm going to click here again to styles, heading 2. So heading 2, right click, modify. This is the specific settings for heading 2. Heading 2, because of its number, it is subordinate to heading 1. So it looks different than heading 1, not too different, but instead of it being all caps, it is sentence case. It is bold, just like heading 1, but it is left justified. It is not centered. And because it's subordinate, the software knows that when it starts to produce this function on the left, this navigation, it knows that heading 2 goes under heading 1. And if you had a heading number 3, likewise, it would go under here and so on and so forth. So as I said, aesthetically, this is pleasing. It's pleasing as an articles of incorporation goes. It's not some, beautiful document, but we want it to be just clean and easy to use and easy to read. But in addition to it being aesthetically pleasing, it's very useful, because if I want to go over here and right click and say expand all, and let's say this was the full version of my articles, and let's say that it was, 40 sections long, and it was, I don't know, 60 pages or whatever, 3 times longer than it is right now. Navigating the document starts to become a problem. So if I want to go and find out about appointment of attorneys, obviously I can search for it too, appointment of attorney. I can do that, and okay, there you go. That was easy. It's section 12.5. But instead of doing that, you can also just click over here. I'm just going to click again, collapse all. If I know I want to go into part 4, which is about share transfers, and then I know that I want to go 4.5 transfer fee, I click on it and it brings it up right here on the right hand corner, right? It's kind of hard for me to show you right when it happens because it's very fast, right? Part 6, alteration of capital. I click that, it takes me to that part. Directors, it takes me to that part. So in addition to it being aesthetically useful, it's useful to navigate the document. It's also useful to alter the document and build on the document. So for example, let's say there was some change in the law and we need to add a new section to our articles of incorporation. I could go up here to styles and I could click styles, heading 1, I could say part 15, new section. And I can do it that way. And if you look over here on the left-hand side, you see that it added part 15, new section. And then I can say, new subsection. And I can highlight that, and I can go to styles, and I can go, new subsection. It doesn't have the numbering. But typically what I do, if I need to add something to a document and I already have it, I just take it from the previous section. So for example, part 14, I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to go to the end of this section, enter Control V to paste, and then I'm just going to change the stuff that I took. Right? Why reinvent the wheel? New section, new section. I suppose with this numbering, I'll have to start a new list so that it's not section 14, so that it's 15.1 and stuff like that. And then text goes here. So headings and subheadings, very important, but they're important for multiple reasons. They're important because they help us control the document, but they also control how the document looks. Slide 79 is just kind of an example of trying to show you that there's a lot going on kind of all at once, and that's the power of headings. This stuff too, you can collapse the sections, you can highlight everything in the section, you can print entire sections. Theoretically, if you wanted, you can just drag and drop sections. So if I wanted directors to be part 12 and vote of shareholders to be, I want this to be 12 and this to be 11, I can just grab this, drag it, let go of it, part 12, change that to say part 11. Obviously all my numbering is messed up now. Click on this one, instead of it saying part 11, it can be part 12. And there you go. Again, this sub-numbering is messed up because I did that, but it was very easy to drag that section around. But if you drag sections around that are independent of numbering, then let's say you're drafting some document with 3 sections, and then later you want the 3rd section to be in the center or move to the first. Again, you can just drag them around if you've done it using headings. So I'm just going to hold Control and press Z just to put the document back to how it was. Ooh, look at all these changes we've made. Okay, so now that document is back to the way it was. So yeah, it does take time to set up. We're on slide 90. It definitely takes time to set up, but if you're going to be using these documents, day after day and over, it definitely is worth your time and effort to set them up. Okay, so we're at slide number 91. I'm going to go back to my notice of civil claim. I'm going to go to the end. In my jurisdiction, the court has mandated, if you're using legislation or if you're relying on legislation in your claim, that you mention what it is. However, the court hasn't really mandated very strongly how exactly they want to see it. So most people here just put it as a list at the end. So this is a bulleted list. We're going to be looking at this, this, and this. So if we click on this down arrow, you can access these different types of bullets. Most of these, like this one's kind of funky. I couldn't see using that, in legal practice. This checkmark one is useful. If I've sent letters to clients and I've said to them, I've done A, B, and C, I like to use the checkmark because a checkmark is a very positive, kind of like thumbs up, like, yes, I did this kind of thing. Same thing with numbering. We click here on this box, it opens it up, this sub box. We can click, standard numbering, 1, 2, 3. We can do lowercase Roman numerals. We can do, capital A, B, C. We can do stuff like that. So that's easy to set up. And then under sublists or like list library, this is where we would go if we wanted to set up something that was complicated, like a multi-level list like this. Like, let's say we were doing, an asset sale, and then we said like, assets, and then like, building 1, building 2, and then, first floor, office 1, computer equipment, mouse, keyboard, monitor, etc. If you're going to be doing a very kind of complex list where you're going to need, 1 sub A sub I or sub 1 sub 1 A sub, then you're gonna get into something like this. You're gonna use this list library, and if you click down here on define new multi-level list, it'll bring up this window which lets you change everything about the list. Like you can change what heading is at each section. Like, is it going to be A or B or sorry, is it going to be A or Roman numeral or a 1? You can change the alignment, you can change the indentation, you can change all of that stuff. So really quick, this is something I've been doing throughout. This is a tip about using a hotkey. Essentially, if you're in a document like, I don't know, any document really, I just want to point out to you, if I use the left and right keys, this is about navigating your cursor basically. If I use the left and right keys, I'm going to push the right key. Right. It's moving one at a time, right? But if I hold the control key, look what it's doing now. It's jumping whole words. So this is something I do all the time. I hold control and use the arrow keys because it makes it so you can navigate the document much faster. If I hold control and press down or up, it does the same thing. It jumps whole paragraphs instead of, one line at a time, line. And then if you use shift, then that's how you can select entire paragraphs or entire lines. Or you can do something like this, push to the right, and I'm highlighting the text. So that's just something I wanted to point out to you. If you haven't done it, hold control when you're using your left and right keys, hold shift when you're using your left and right keys. Give that a try just as something to speed you up. I'm not sure if you know about that or if you've seen that before, but please do. It's here on slide 95, and it's included in your reference materials. Okay, so jumping to pages, we are going to look at headers, footers, page numbers, and section breaks. Headers and footers. So this is just a standard picture of header and footer that you've seen before on a document. It's nothing surprising. And then here is a document itself. So the way to get into the header section is you just double click on the section at the top. It's as easy as that. And then it brings up this information. The way to edit a header and footer basically works the same as everything that we've been talking about so far. I do want to point out that in this precedent, I've clicked here on layout, and I'm going to click on view grid lines. There's actually a table in this header. Pardon me, I'm going to click always show ribbon. There's a table in this header so that we can left align this and then right align stuff over here, or there's a table down here that we're using to format the text. We're not going to be talking about tables in this presentation, but we are in a future session, so please keep that in mind. But using this header and footer section, and then clicking into it, clicking out of it, that's how we do that. And then there's this button here, different first page. So if you see this is what the document looks like, page 1, page 2. You see that the first page has like our firm logo and our firm information in the top left corner, whereas on this page we do not. So that's the way we achieve that. We use this button, which is different first page. And now I'm going to show you just a simple thing about numbering pages. So there's a basic technique, which is when you're in header and footer, you click here where it says page number, top of page, and then let's say we said plain number 3, and we want it to be over on the right-hand side of the screen, page, pardon me. I click on that, and there you go. So what it did is well, actually, sorry, I should do that on page 2. I don't want that on page 1. So I'm gonna go to page numbers, top of page to the right. So what it did is it put the number 2 there. This is indeed the second page, but it turned the formatting to Calibri. Size is 11. It's just a vanilla page number. It doesn't look very good. We'd want to do some formatting on that to make it consistent with our document and stuff like that. But I don't like to do page numbering like that. I like to do page numbering that says page blank of blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the header. And pardon me, the reason I like to do page blank of blank is so that if you give a document to a colleague or you send it by fax and it's a 4-page document, if they get the document and they say page, I have page 3 of 4, but that's where the fax stopped, they know there's a 4th page, and they can say to you, hey, can you send me page 4 of 4? I only got page 3 of 4. So the way that we do this, I'm going to delete these numbers so that I can show you how to do it from scratch. So we write in the word page, and then we're going to go up here to insert, and then we're going to click on this funny little icon that has like a blue rectangle and a gray rectangle. Click on that, and then we're going to click on field. Now we're going to scroll down to where it says num pages and page. So we're going to start with page because this is page 2 space of space, and now I'm going to click on this again, click on field. I'm going to come back down here and I'm going to go to num pages. Keep in mind this is in your materials. If I'm moving too quickly, this is in the materials. So now I went num pages 2 of 2. So if this letter is to opposing counsel and it is, I don't know, on a very complex matter and there's a lot to say, I'm going to just paste this paragraph, paste, just to make a really long document. So if you look here on the 6th page, page 6 of 6, page 5 of 6, page 4 of 6. So that is a best practice. That is what you want to be doing. You want to have page blank of blank. It looks so much better than just saying, page 1, page 2, page 3. But anyway, I'll leave that to you. Okay, so section breaks. Section breaks are a really important thing. I'm going to go back to our articles of incorporation. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, I told you that I would be telling you how to do something to one section that's different than another, such as in the notice of civil claim. I showed you how to, I showed you that the first page had 2-inch left and top margins, but then the rest of the document did not. So how did we do that? Well, we achieved that by using section breaks. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to make this bigger for you. We're going to turn our formatting on, and we're going to come here to the end of this section. This document is logically made of 2 sections: the table of contents and then the articles of incorporation themselves, the actual articles. So between these sections, right here, very important line, it says section break, next page. So the way to think of this, and actually I've got a slide, everything that comes after the green is section 2. Everything that comes before the green is section 1. And why are we using that in this document in particular? We're actually using it to control the page numbering. So if you look up here on page 1, there's nothing in the top right corner. We've done this with the footer, different first page. But then we come down here and it says page 2, Roman numeral 2. What about page 1 of the articles themselves? Oops, we come here to page 1 of the articles themselves. Again, there's no page number. That's what we want, just to give that clean look on the front page of a document. And then we come here to page 2. It says page 2. But it's a 2. It's not a Roman numeral 2. The reason it's a 2 and not a Roman numeral 2 is because it is a different section. It has its own settings as with respect to how it's going to page number. Also, it's not continuing the page numbering from before. Like if you look here in the bottom left corner, we're actually on page 6 of 21. This document that you're seeing here is the 6th page, but it says it's page 2. Why does it say it's page 2? It says it's page 2 because this is page 2 of the 2nd section. So how do we install or insert a section break? I'm going to delete this one so that you can see me adding it in. So delete that. I'll put this on the next page. Whatever, I'll do it this way. It's under, is it references or layout? Layout. I always click references and then it's under layout. It's under layout. You click on break, and then I do usually a next page break. So what that's going to do is it's going to push everything onto the next page like that, and then this is where the next section starts. And voila. So that's how you do a section break. They can be a bit finicky because when you add them, it causes ripples, like it'll affect the previous section and it will affect other sections. So you have to watch out for that, but it's an extremely powerful thing to do. As I say here on slide 120, you can have different pagination for different parts, and you can draft multiple documents in one file. And I offer a service for law firms called Omniform, which essentially helps make these kind of power precedents. But conceptually, the example that I like to use the most is if you're using documents to incorporate a company and you've got 14 different documents. You don't want to have 14 individual Word files that you have to go into and make changes and then close it and then go into the next one and then make changes and close it. If you can make all of your changes in one document, it's much, much, much faster. It's more reliable. It's cleaner drafting. And it's all you have to do is set it up. If you think back of that slide I showed you with the runner with the very nicely defined calves, it takes time to set this stuff up, but investing in that early on is going to pay dividends throughout your time practicing, because you're going to be using it all the time, right? So it works extremely well for litigation documents, estate planning documents. So anyways, it's a bit hard to describe in words, but if you're interested in knowing more about that, just let me know. Okay, so we're getting near the end. Jumping back to our letter to opposing counsel, say. So at the end of this section, the first paragraph, I put a footnote. And the footnote is down here to weed door, which I think has nothing to do with what's being said here. It's just an example that I remembered from law school, and it just jumped to mind. And if you hold your mouse over the text, it actually shows you. It says https://canley.ca/t/t/gbfcg. So if we hold Control and we click, it's going to open just right to the link. And by the way, this is a little trick. This link to this case works. This little short link works as well. Basically, they give each case kind of two links, so that this is the full link within the website, the English, Canada, Federal Court of Appeal, blah, 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 blah. But then this short link just makes it easier and shortens it down. So I like to use these short links. But anyway, so if I right click this, copy link address, I'm going to minimize this window. I'm going to right click on this, remove hyperlink. So the reason I did that is so that I can show you how to make a hyperlink. So basically, let's say we've had this footnote here and we're just saying, well, I could leave the text, but link to case. I'm just writing this so you know that you can do this to any text. You just highlight the text. Where are we? We're on this insert screen. Click on links, link, insert link, or you can just right click on it. Can you? And then you go down to link. Yeah, and then you can insert link. So because I have this URL to a website, I'm just going to paste it here where it says address. Alternately, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can link it to another document on your network. So if you're doing this, within your firm and you've got coworkers that can access the same files, you can do that. You can link to a section in the document. You already have to have that set up, kind of like in our articles of incorporation. You need to be able to link to a certain section or certain heading. You can make it create a new document. You can link it to an email address. And actually, in some jurisdictions, my understanding is that it is becoming mandated that links be included in cases. In my jurisdiction, I was actually recently speaking with a legal assistant who works for the government, and she was working on a joint book of authorities for the Court of Appeal. And she told me that the court is requiring that hyperlinks be included to cases that take them into the case, but not necessarily to the paragraph within the case. On the other hand, I was actually speaking with a lawyer who is about 3 time zones away from me across the country, and she told me that in her Supreme Court, in her jurisdiction, they are requiring that links be included and that those links be pinpoint links that take you right to the paragraph within the document. So I understand that this is a live issue. I should note that there are kind of cybersecurity issues that come with including links in documents, because the people who are clicking the links need to trust that the link is taking them to a safe place and to the right place. Obviously, that's on you to make sure that if you include a link in the document, that it's not a dangerous link, it's not a spam link, it's not anything like that, and it is taking the person to the right location, presumably to some sort of case law or other legitimate document. So yes, I'm actually concluding this session with this discussion because I know how this is a live issue, and it actually seems to be going back and forth depending on jurisdictions, and some jurisdictions are actually changing their mind as far as whether they require the hyperlinks and whether the hyperlinks need to take you right into the case law, like right into the paragraph, or if it's sufficient that it just takes you to the case itself. Okay, and with that, we have reached the conclusion of this video. Thank you very much for joining me. If you learned something new, please leave a comment right now. For example, if it was helpful to you to learn about how you can condense text, that you can keep it all on one page and stay within page limits, let me know about that. If it was news to you about how you can use section breaks and headings to really supercharge your documents, let me know about that. And if you need more CPD credit, and if you want to learn even more, please check out my lawyer tech course. It's about 2 hours of materials on hardware and software, completely designed for lawyers to be used in legal practice. So I think that if you check that out, you'll learn even more great tips and tricks. So with that, I will leave off by saying thank you very much yet again. My name is Sean Dillman.